For every zero point 0.1 seconds that your page speed decreases by, your sales on your funnel will increase by 8%, which is honestly like one of the most insane stats I've heard in regards to digital marketing.
Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to Growth Mentors, the podcast where we share snackable growth hacks, strategies, and best practices in how to drive maximum marketing impact and grow your bottom line. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and today we are going to be talking about conversion rate optimization and the number one tool that you can use to improve your conversion rate. So here to talk us through it is the Director of Paid Marketing at Jump 450, Dave Armstrong. What's happening, Dave?
Hey, Matt, how are you?
Doing great. Jave, let's jump right in. I just called you Jave. And
Jave is Dave at Jump, so it works.
Perfect. A little bit of quick context. What is conversion rate optimization?
Conversion rate optimization, kind of in a nutshell, is, in a sense, a marketing strategy that basically aims to improve the percentage of users who convert on your website. Or I guess a more accurate thing to say would be the percentage of users who take a desired action on your website experience funnel or your mobile app. Those actions or those conversions honestly can be anything. For most people, especially in e-commerce, obviously that's making a purchase. But you can use conversion rate optimization on clicking your add to cart button, filling out a lead form, signing up for a newsletter, even just clicking on a specific link. All of those can be considered in the bucket of conversion rate optimization, but ultimately all you're trying to do with conversion rate optimization is increase the percentage of visitors to your site or funnel or app that take a specific action.
Excellent. So ultimately, we are going to be sharing about a tool that we have found to really improve your conversion rate, and it is free. But first, why don't we just start with the sort of like problem area, or what is the thing that people can improve to most greatly impact their conversion rate?
So the number one thing to prioritize with increasing conversion rate optimization is, I'm sure everybody should know this or is somewhat privy to this information, but it's page speed. Like that's all it boils down to. Page speed is the number one priority to increase conversion rate on your site, or again, the percentage of users who are taking specific actions on your site. It's also my favorite one because it's very binary. It's your page speed is low and you increase it or not. It's literally just a 0 or a 1. There's a bunch of other things that go into conversion rate optimization, which basically all that I can think of have to do with split testing. So you need to split test a headline, you need to split test an image, add to cart button, a purchase flow, upsells. All these different things are things that you need to split test, whereas page speed is your page is quick or your page is slow, and you have very specific steps and recommendations through these tools in order to increase your page speed.
Right. And so is page speed sort of the number one lever to pull because of patience? Is that the reason that this is so impactful?
That's my number one reason. I'll say I'm a little biased here. I consider myself a pretty patient person, but when it comes to technology, not at all. Like I'm not a patient person when it comes to technology. It's almost 2025 at this point. If your page is taking longer than 3 seconds to load, I'm not buying from you. It's like hands down the number one reason why I won't purchase from a particular site or from a particular brand. There's also really great stats on this as well.
Yeah.
Basically, in a nutshell, the longer it takes your page to load, the less likely users are going to convert on those pages. The stat I've read from a company called Kiss Metrics is that a quarter of your visitors will leave your page if it takes over 3 seconds to load. So I might technically be in a minority here of only a quarter of the users, taking or leaving if it takes over 3 seconds for your page to load. But consider how much money is lost if your brand's page or your app or your particular website experience or funnel takes longer than 3 seconds. It obviously diminishes if it takes 2.5 seconds or 1.5 seconds, but you're losing people no matter what. There's always going to be a bounce rate on your page. So the more quickly that you can get your page to load, the better. So impatience, that's basically the same thing as saying user experience, Matt, right? So
Yeah.
User experience, in my opinion, is the number one reason to prioritize page speed loading. That was kind of a mouthful. But there's other pretty important reasons as well. So Google, the actual search engine or their search engine results pages or SERPs tend to favor faster pages. So the slower your site loads, the lower you're going to rank in search results. And then everything basically boils back to conversions, right? The improvement of page speed is going to increase your conversion rates. Another stat that I can't recall exactly where I've heard this before, so maybe we can add an addendum or add like a quick little note or something in the future. But for every 0.1 seconds that your page speed decreases by, your sales on your funnel will increase by 8%, which is honestly like one of the most insane stats I've heard in regards to digital marketing. But yeah, I'll say that again. Every 0.1 seconds faster your page speed loads. This is actually specific to mobile too. Every 0.1 seconds faster your page speeds loads on mobile, your sales will increase by 8%, which is wild. It's like, that's all you have to do. So if you can get your page to load 0.3 seconds faster, half a second faster, you could potentially even expect a 40+% increase in sales, which is honestly kind of astounding. It's not talked about that much. Everybody knows page speed's important, but nobody really prioritizes it.
Yeah. So let's take us home here. Let's talk about the tool that we can use. This is going to essentially give you a score on your page speed, yeah, and tell you where you can basically recommend what areas and how you can improve on your page speed.
Yeah. So the two tools I use the most for page speed, they're both page speed tools. I like to use two because sometimes you'll get certain recommendations from one that you won't get from another and vice versa. But I use GTmetrix, which anybody involved in any of these page speed conversations should know what GTmetrix is. And I also use pingdom.com. So gtmetrix.com and pingdom.com. I like them first and foremost because they're free. They're really quick. They're easy to get your top 5, top 10 recommendations. You can sign up for them and they'll give you an even more in-depth look at all of the recommendations. And I believe if you sign up and you pay for the tool, you also get instructions on how to implement those recommendations.
Okay.
But every developer I've ever worked with, I feel like I'm speaking a lot of ultimatums today, kind of like a Sith in Star Wars, but every developer I've ever worked with has been able to implement the free recommendations relatively quickly. So those two sites, they're very straightforward. You'll basically go on the site, whatever landing page or URL you have like in question, see how fast a particular website loads. Usually that's the first one you're going to push in there is your homepage. But the smarter thing to do is to push in whatever page is getting the most traffic on your site, or whatever page you're driving the most traffic to via organic or paid, or other sources. So you just plug that in, you click the button, you say, what's my page speed? And it'll steadily analyze your page speed. You can do this from other geos too. So you can click, hey, load my page from Carlsbad, California, or load my page from Tokyo, Japan, or Dubrovnik, Croatia, or whatever. And they'll have a server in that, or they'll have, an IP in that spot, and they'll load your page up. And then they give you specific recommendations. They'll give you a score, like A, B, C, D, F, and what your actual page speed load time was I believe in milliseconds, what the size of the page is in hopefully megabytes. Hopefully you're not loading anything that's in gigabytes, because that would be ridiculous. And then you'll get specific recommendations on what you need to fix, what the highest priority items are, for you to improve, basically, to again improve that page speed.
Can you give us a couple of examples on what those recommendations might be?
Yeah, I actually ran a site through this, through GTmetrix and through Pingdom, and I just got a few specific recommendations on how to improve a site. Right now, the site loads at a 1.33 second, and our performance grade is a C, and this is on Pingdom. And improved page speed performance, it gives us recommendations to not add expired headers, compress components with gzip, make fewer HTTP requests, avoid URL directs, reduce DNS lookups. These are all things that might sound foreign to a lot of like tried and true digital marketers also, but developers are very familiar with this language, or at least they should be. So these are very specific things you can send to them, be like, hey, why is this loading this slowly, or why are we not compressing components with gzips? Other recommendations, so I'll switch over to GTmetrix.
Actually, if I could just stop you just for a hot second. What was that first one that you gave about headers?
The first one, this is a recommendation from Pingdom, and it says, the suggestion is to add expired headers. Web pages are becoming increasingly complex with more scripts, style sheets, images, and Flash on them. A first-time visit to a page may require several HTTP requests to load all the components. And by using expires headers, these components become cacheable, which avoids unnecessary HTTP requests on subsequent page views. So they're most often associated with images, which is what we'll see on GTmetrix as well.
I see.
But they can and should be used on all page components that include scripts or style sheets.
Excellent. So all of that feedback that we've already gotten is from Pingdom. Now, what is the thinking behind using both tools and comparing? Is that just kind of like standard, always get a second opinion kind of thing, or do they provide the same sorts of insights?
Honestly, the best way for me to explain it is just because we got out of the Olympics. I was watching a lot of gymnastics. They have, I think, like 5 judges. They throw out the top score, they throw out the bottom score, and they average the 3 in the middle. Or maybe that's surfing, or maybe it's both. But you might just get different information from GTmetrix that you get from Pingdom. You might see that they're exactly the same too, which gives you even more trust that these are things that you should fix.
Yeah.
But it's just like talking to 2 different experts. You might get some really good ideas from one. You might get some really good ideas from the other that are not mutually exclusive, or are mutually exclusive.
Gotcha. And both tools are free, and it seems easy enough to just sort of plug your page in. And
it's super easy. Yeah, anybody who goes to the site. I like GTmetrix more if you did only want to choose one. It's a little bit more user-friendly, and the steps laid out I find easier to understand. Like me not being a developer, I find them easier to understand. But one example, like the example I just gave of those headers conversation on Pingdom, I see basically the same thing on GTmetrix, but it's explained to me in a much easier way. So the number one recommendation on GTmetrix, which we also got a C on this website that I tested, also loaded in about 1.5 seconds. So all of those kind of like quick things are about the same, but the first recommendation is avoid enormous network payloads. So it's said in a different way. It's the same exact thing as what Pingdom was telling us. And it has to do with the size of images that are loaded on this particular site.
I see.
So you'll see that quite a bit, like images. And if you're loading videos on your site, it's going to decrease page speed time. I technically made a mistake earlier in saying that the page speed is very binary. You could argue that page speed loads you to do or leads you to do A/B testing, right? So how does my page speed look with these images, without these images, or with these images or videos compressed? How does it actually perform with different smaller images or videos or none at all. So like that kind of leads you to A/B test. But ultimately, you could also make the argument, hey, these videos or these images are obviously necessary for my particular visitor. I need them to see what the product looks like, or I need them to envision or get educated about these things. And if I take it off, my conversion rate's going to drop massively. But just increasing the page speed on its own is not the end goal. That's probably a pretty important place to start, because if you did that, all you would need is a quick sentence, and then everybody converts. But clearly there's reasons to have images, to have videos, to have various components on your website that will take longer to load, but ultimately will have the desired impact on the user experience that you're trying to get ultimately, which is that conversion. So figuring those things out is super important. Figuring out how to load them quickly or compress them so they load in like a secondary fashion is super important.
Right. So basic advice for anything: use the tools available, and use your brain too.
Exactly.
So Dave, let's just reiterate our statistic there one more time. What was it? If we decrease our page speed by 0.1 seconds, is that it? Then we can improve conversions by 8%.
Yeah, decreasing page speed load time by 0.1 seconds can lead to an increase of 8% in sales, or 8% in technically revenue, I guess. That specific stat was on mobile only. I don't have the desktop stats, but they probably follow the same direction, or they're at least directional in increasing the user behavior of desktop and mobile. Obviously is different, but increasing your page speed time is, I don't think it's ever been a bad thing. If you take a step back and you just, this will bring us all the way back to the beginning. But if you take a step back, and even if you're the most patient person in the world, if a page is even if it takes a minute to load, you got better things to do than wait for a website to load.
A minute's a long time. A minute's going to feel like forever.
Especially because there are very few, if any, industries that I can think of online that don't have a competitor doing this to them. So if you're at Adidas and Nike's page is taking longer to load, you are probably losing market share to the faster competitor. Yeah. This goes without saying with almost everything in life. We're running these fast races. We're living these fast lives. The faster you can get things done, the more you'll hopefully have time to focus on what's important in your life. And waiting for a website, in my opinion, is not one of them.
Excellent. So optimize your conversion rate. Check out GT Metrics. Check out Pingdom. Both of these tools are free. This has been Dave Armstrong, the Director of Paid Marketing at Jump 450. And if you are listening and you are interested in exploding your digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to subscribe for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.